Introducing What's in a Game, a series about games that have a great vision but need a bit more time to cook. Today we'll be covering the Land of the Magnates, a puzzle platformer from Permanent Way Games. Up front, thank you sincerely to Permanent Way Games for the key to try their game out. And while I apologize in advance for seeming harsh at times, I'm going to keep my criticisms as constructive as possible. Now I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Land of the Magnates needs a lot of work. And specifically needs some real talented game designers, level designers, localizers, writers, and voice actors. Now I mean this in the best way possible. The small group of Turkish developers who brought this to life clearly have a story they want to tell, and put a lot of effort into what comprises the game in its current form. And I want to give the fledgling devs the benefit of the doubt here. To introduce the core concept and setting, Land of the Magnates is a tale of action, adventure, betrayal, and romance, taking place in a fantasized Middle Eastern country called the Land of the Sun, in which you take on the role of the crown prince of the land, Malik Shahbaz. A cruel betrayal at the hands of the court minister leaves you on the run.
There's a traitor among us.
Needing to leave behind your beloved fiancé to seek help from the gods in restoring your father's health, your country's dignity, and your own birthright. To do this, you acquire a magical sitar, referred to simply as the instrument. Using it, you adventure through enchanted forests, lava-filled mines, and more to repair the instrument and save your father, the king. How does a sitar do that exactly? Excellent question, Greg. In this world, music has magical properties, but due to some event that happened long before we take control of Shahbaz, Mom can't tell me not to run down the stairs anymore, let's go! Whee! All music is forbidden in the kingdom.
I said no. No one except your mother has the right to play any musical instrument, unless it's after my death.
And the magical enchanted instrument from the gods that our late mother used to play is locked away in deep storage. Our father gets poisoned by the minister, who assumes control of the country in his stead, and Shahbaz knows that music will be the cure he needs. Foiled by that same minister, Shahbaz sets out on his journey, encouraged by his fiancée, who may or may not be a witch or something. Okay, so the stage is set and the tutorial is over. Now the actual points I want to make. Let's start with the good, because there is a lot I want to say in this section. Number one, just look at it. This game is beautiful. All the assets seem handmade to fit together both with themselves and the mythical nature of the Land of the Sun. Ornate palatial designs, gold trim, artisan pottery, and impressive architecture fill the opening segment, and the beauty of the game doesn't stop from there. The enchanted forest looks straight out of a storybook, and the cel-shaded look of it all gives the impression we are legitimately playing in a fairy tale land, lending an air of wonder and mystique to the world. The artist clearly went hard making the game look stunning, and I'd say they nailed it. No complaints from me on the art direction. Similarly, I'll offer no complaints about the themes of the world. Land of the Magnates seeks to bring Middle Eastern and Near Eastern mythology and folklore to a wider audience by letting us experience these things firsthand. Magic is around every corner, and wait, is that our fiancé's face made of fire coming out of a brazier? Right, so some things need a bit more explaining for my Western backgrounded mind to comprehend, but it's most definitely intriguing, and things like this only make me want to see more and learn about this cultural mythos. Next up is the core gameplay theme. The sitar and its interactions with the world are fascinating and really combine the magical nature of the instrument with gameplay elements to immerse you in Shahbaz's quest. The instrument can be used to freeze things in place, set things alight, and cause crushing impacts, all of which are needed for puzzle solving. The puzzles aren't groundbreaking or anything, but the way that you solve them is certainly amusing, like freezing this lava flow to enable a sick wall run, or launching a shockwave to knock down this platform so you can use it. Unfortunately, this is pretty much where my positive criticisms end. You see, while the vision and idea and art of this game are all wonderful, when it comes to the actual gameplay, it leaves a lot to be desired. Let's go in no particular order. Shahbaz controls a little too fluidly for a puzzle platformer. Some fluidity is good and fun, allowing you to seamlessly transition from one move to the next, like sliding and jumping with no lag time between. However, these elements are given a little too much freedom in the environments you're meant to traverse. Take for example this jump. Looks simple enough, just hop over and oh, instant death due to a very slight misalignment. Let's just try it again and oh, I died again. It's completely fair to say skill issue and make fun of me here, But I posit that in a puzzle platforming game, the platforming should never be as obtuse or prone to failure as this. The game switches from 3D to 2D controls on a whim, and the transition can cause more than a little frustration. Now about that puzzle part of puzzle platformer. The puzzles in this game are severely lacking in complexity. Now this could change later in the game, but for the first few hours, and keep in mind I was moving at a blistering pace once I found the sprint button, the puzzles felt more like when you press a button to advance dialogue. Oh, there's a wall I need to break? Press X and everything is fixed. There's a lava platform I can't land on? Just press B and off you go. The game asks very little of your ability to interpret and solve puzzles, and more just puts simple obstacles in your way so you aren't just sprinting from combat to combat. Speaking of which, the combat. So Shahbaz's sitar has 3 notes you can play, but in combat all of these just do the same small tick of damage with no secondary effect that I can see. The damage is tiny, so you are heavily encouraged to press the buttons shown above each enemy's head in that order for critical damage, almost always resulting in a kill. This is fine, I guess. It starts feeling challenging when tons of enemies are on screen with different inputs needed, but I wouldn't say this is engaging combat, just a bit tedious. I will say that when you nail a few in a row, it is very satisfying. The enemies probably pull from myth and folklore, but aren't given names, descriptions, or any kind of character beyond bad guy you need to defeat. So to a cultural outsider, I have no idea what I'm supposed to make of these things. They're all drawn and modeled well enough, and some even present minor puzzle elements within a combat encounter, like this guy who acts as a wall. But altogether, they feel a bit soulless and basic. Shahbaz only has a few hit points at first, though you can find shards hidden around the world to fix that over time. I use hidden here a bit liberally though, since the paths you need to go to get them look just as compelling as the critical path, and the puzzles hiding them are truly simple. You'll most likely find these on your own without feeling like you went out of your way or did anything worth celebrating. That leads nicely into the level design. I'm sure that the level designer did their best here, but just nothing particularly striking or mind-blowing here. All the paths are clearly laid out and basically unmissable. You can spot a combat arena a mile away. And interactions with the environment are basically, do I need to play my instrument or just keep running? To be fair, there may be things later in the game that get more complex, and this swampy area that requires you to be somewhat careful with your jumps is neat, but far from the variation in design that I'm looking for when entering a platformer. Your forward momentum is sometimes stopped altogether by these little rings of light where you need to play a little sitar hero minigame to open a path. I have a few issues with this. First is that you can't miss these. There's no path you can take outside of them, so they feel less like a puzzle and more like a roadblock you just have to clear to progress, adding to the general tedium of play. Secondly, while the music that plays during this minigame is lovely, the notes you need to play are completely random and don't match with the music at all, making the background music more disruptive than helpful. You just have to brute force your mind not to think about the music while timing the button presses, which is like the complete antithesis to how rhythm games work. They always last about the same number of notes, don't feel too rhythmic to the hands at all, and offer no complex interactions to spice it up, like needing to hold a key or play any chords. This honestly always dragged on way too long for me and only served to make me sigh every time I saw one. This is a good opportunity to talk about, well, the talking. It seems the studio must have used all in-house voice actors, which is fine I guess, except that they decided to dub everything in English, and I think if there is a localizer, they were on holiday, since the whole thing sounds like this.
A part of your mother's essence remains on the instrument, and I'll also share a part of myself with it.
I will sacrifice my life to protect the Crown Prince's throne.
An instrument? Which land are you from that you carry an instrument with you?
The cutscenes, like the rest of the game, are pretty to look at, but once it starts moving you realize there's a lot missing. Just try and follow this conversation, you'll see what I mean.
Set out on the journey, my child, and find your voice, for it is the sound of the instrument that soothes your father.
But I don't know where to go, where to search for it.
Play a note at the melody whereof a great sigh one can cast. utter a verse, whereby the heavy cup of wine one can cast. If at the beloved's threshold one can lay one's head, to the sky the shadow of loftiness one can cast.
I don't understand. I don't understand.
The last thing I want to talk about are the boss fights. There's something I've been dreading talking about because I couldn't even finish the first one. Not because of difficulty, mind you, but out of a mixed bag of frustration and boredom. I get that in a puzzle game, the bosses should have puzzle elements, I really do. But this game has been handing you action-y combat encounters for the whole game thus far, and upon seeing how you're supposed to beat the first boss, all my enthusiasm to continue just flew right out the window. First off, I don't even know where this thing came from. From my perspective, I was just doing some chill platforming and then bam! Big lady pops out of the lava below and I guess we're fighting now. Her attack patterns are simple and repetitive with no real room for skill or creativity from the player. Jump over her arm a few times, which gets faster each time. Freeze her and hit her to do some damage. Then she knocks some of the platform away and summons some goons for you to recover health off of. Repeat 3 times, with each phase getting more drawn out. I don't know, what can I say here? The dodging is very easy, except when the hitboxes don't quite line up. The platform busting could be fun, but she just takes small chunks off of the ends of the arena, which doesn't really affect you at all. The enemies she summons are actually the best part of the fight, but she takes no actions while they're out, so it really is just to give you some health back, not to add any actual difficulty to the fight. She can also shoot these delayed purple laser balls or whatever, but you can dodge them just by walking in one direction without even needing to sprint. It kind of encapsulates the whole game in one scene. Undeniably pretty and interesting from an art and lore perspective, but devoid of any substance beyond press buttons at the right time. You can't hit the boss until she does her thing to set it up for you, and her lazy aiming feels like she doesn't even want you to get hit. So that's that, I guess, since I dropped the game at this point. To sum everything up, Land of the Magnates is a passion project made by some very ambitious developers working on what my research suggests is their first ever game. So a few rough edges on a project like this are acceptable, but to make this game feel like a finished product, it would require a complete overhaul of just about the entire thing, which could mean totally remaking the game from the ground up, just keeping the art assets and the music, which I haven't mentioned yet, but it's quite nice. Give me cleaner platforming, more engaging puzzles, lore info about all the interesting locales and enemies, especially the bosses, some clear direction on what the critical path is so I can make an informed decision about where I want to explore, and get the whole thing rewritten, localized, and voice acted by a group of professionals.
No one has the permission to leave the palace!
And this may end up an excellent game that invites many hours of play. In its current state, though, I could only recommend it if you are an aspiring game developer and you want to see how to not design a game. I wish Permanent Way and the young developers there all the success in the world and hope they take these lessons with them on their next project. That's all I've got to say here, so thanks for watching, and if you want to pick up a copy for yourself and prove me wrong about this, link is in the description. Till next time.